Hello, my dear, and welcome to our 5 minutes with Ekaterina war vlog about Dnipro, the central Ukraine. This week, regretfully, we have a lot of worrying and disturbing news from the Kharkiv direction, where Russians started a new attack. This is the territory of Ukraine, which they have already invaded back in 2022, and which was successfully regained by Ukrainian army. And people they came back home, and they were able to establish their life despite the shelling from Belgrade, despite the shelling from Russian territory. And literally today I was scrolling my news and I saw that Russians use civilian roads and they just block their transport in somewhere near Belgrade to shoot. The Ukrainian territory with artillery. It's normal. They just put the military vehicle in the middle of the road, block the road for civilians, and they start shooting. And what they want to provoke Ukrainians to answer and in some way damage Russian civilian cars. And of course, this is war crime by itself, but also they did not stop on it, on just shelling the territory. They decided that they want to take the houses of these people who only a few years, like 2 years basically, a little bit less than 2 years ago, they were able to go back to the occupied territory. And now, regretfully, the town of Vovchansk is almost completely destroyed because when Russians invade, the tactics they use is to ruin house after house, street after street. So they are not interested in occupying the towns. They know that people don't like them, that people will not cooperate or collaborate, and they just ruin buildings in order to make it impossible to live there. And in this way, they will not have the resistance from the local population, something that they still have in the Zaporizhia region, in the occupied parts of the Zaporizhia region, in occupied parts of Kherson region, for example. And also, it will kind of save them the need of taking house after house, like protecting these buildings. And they're ruining now, they're continuing ruining the town of Vovchansk. Ukrainian army is still there, but it's very likely that the city would be either destroyed or town. This is a town, basically. The town will be destroyed, and Ukrainian forces they will just go out of the city, and that's what is happening in other cities. That was happened in Marinka, that was happened in Avdiivka, that's something that now happening in Krasnohorivka. And all this means that the front line is moving closer to Dnipro. Regretfully, that's something happening in real time now, and I'm very worried about it because the closer the front line, of course, the more danger people have, and it means that we have new wave of refugees. For example, it means that they might at some point be able to shell residential buildings in Dnipro from the smaller calibers, and that's probably the most dangerous thing, as we were talking before already, because that's how they will kill more civilians that they're killing now in constant airstrikes, which are not stopping. 20 shaheds or 30 shaheds per night is something that is kind of a new normality in Ukraine, and that's something that is happening all the time. But the smaller calibers, like they do in Nikopol, for example, they shell Nikopol from the nuclear power station, which is situated on the other bank of the river or of this artificial lake near the nuclear station. They shell the city of Nikopol from there, and Nikopol is suffering. A lot of people are dying weekly, like people are dying weekly. So that's the general situation, and of course, people normal life is suffering a lot. For example, two of my friends recently had strokes, and they're in their early 40s. When I was living my normal civilian life, I'm still living a civilian life, but when my civilian life was normal, I never thought that people as young as in their 40s would have strokes, and that would be something that we need to worry about in my age, for example. But two of my friends, within a very short period of time, they went to hospital. One person, he used to serve in the army, so I kind of understand that it is related to the war trauma. But for another person, she's a woman, and she's a civilian woman who never went to the front line, who never participated in fighting, and recently she was in hospital with this diagnosis, and almost at the same time, her relative also was administered to hospital with a stroke, but he's of the older generation, and in his case it was lethal. So the biggest problem now is that people are starting to show the symptoms of their ongoing conditions, or they're starting to develop new health conditions. And my mom's neighbor, for example, she tried to commit suicide. She jumped from the fourth floor of the residential building. Um, Thankfully, she was lucky, and she was saved, but she is still in hospital, and she will have to undergo very serious treatment. And the reason of her suicide attempt was the anxiety related to war. Basically, she developed some kind of mental condition because of the panics, because of the constant sirens. She was not able to cope with it. So people are enduring like the huge stress, and now the new wave of mobilization is ongoing as well. Starting from yesterday, the new law was enforced, and that means that younger people will have to go to the front line, and of course everybody is stressed over it. On a little bit brighter side is that Ukrainian army finally seem to have more weapons, and there is some kind of parity. At least we don't have like this huge disadvantage, like which used to be like 1 to 10 shells. That it's a proportion that is normal, kind of normal for Ukrainian army. So now some of the international help started to arrive, and we are slowly reaching the parity. So hopefully we will be able to stop this wave of invasion. I cannot say what is going to happen militarily, but it's clear that even in Vovchansk, which Russians are destroying square by square, the resistance is pretty good, and they were not able to push Ukrainian army even to this first line of defense, which was built in advance. It was built further in Ukrainian territory, and that's a very disputable thing. Why they did it? Why they didn't put mines in the forests? Why they didn't protect the border better? Because there was a fence there, Russians went through this fence, but it was not enough. It was just literally just normal fence that you would see in your town between your neighbors, for example. So there are a lot of questions of what's happening, but the situation is stabilizing, if you can name it, if you can call it stabilization in these conditions. And as for the general economic situation, it's pretty bad. Russians managed to destroy a lot of electricity infrastructure, and blackouts started. So we have the electricity outages. It's so far not crucial and happens in night time only, but it might happen that they will be longer, and also the prices for the electricity for the population, they're increasing. So people who were in these groups, unprotected, unsupported groups, like elderly without relatives, for example, or people with many children, they would feel consequences of this electricity infrastructure damage, and they will economically be very vulnerable. There is still enough food, there is still enough water. When there is an electricity blackout, as you remember, the water cannot go because you need pumps, and so far, again, because the outages were at night and they were planned, water either was there or nobody noticed that it wasn't there because people were sleeping, but it is possible that there would be like water outages again. That's the situation for now, for me, it's pretty grim. I'm still very pessimistic about what is happening both internationally and internally. I think, I hope you are following the news, and the news is very disturbing because many politicians visiting each other, and it's pretty difficult to figure out what are they talking about and what place they would give Ukrainians, what subjectivity or objectivity even sometimes they're given to Ukrainian, and how they would try to press us towards negotiations with Russia. So we will see what happens. We are not losing, that's the main thing. The situation is very serious and it is crucial. And we all need to help the army, we all need to help the civilians who are closer to the battlefield. We need to help evacuated civilians. And also we need to talk to our friends about the war because that is something that is disappearing from the news and this question is kind of fading amidst other crises, but nothing has been solved for Ukraine. It's still a big problem, and we need to stop this war as soon as possible. So thank you so much. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for following me and for trying to understand the news from Ukraine. I hope to see you very soon under much better circumstances. Goodbye for now.